Game of the Year award has always been the most prestigious award for any game studio. Why? Because even the top execs attend the show. They might never respond to any controversy or might never fix any issues for their game. But if they are nominated, then rest assured, the top of the top execs will be there to receive the award. Now, I'm not saying that the games that receive the award do not deserve it, while some of them don't in my opinion, but these games are actually really good. So today we'll be ranking these Game of the Year award winners from Game Awards and from the Spike Video Game Awards, which was the company that ran the show before Jeff Keighley decided to make his own. Let's get started. As the last place and possibly the worst winner of the Game of the Year award, we have Madden NFL 2004. Madden NFL 2004 was the first game that received the Game Award for 2003, in a year where GTA Vice City, Final Fantasy, and even Call of Duty were some of the other options. Spike Game Awards decided to give Madden NFL the Game of the Year award. I personally have not played any Madden game, certainly not the 2004 version, but I'm pretty sure no one was as hyped about it as Vice City. What's even more surprising was that for the same year, they gave the Best Sports Game award to Tony Hawk's Underground. I mean, the game couldn't even win in its own genre and still was named the best game of the year. I have no idea what they based their judgment on, but we move on. Maybe because it was their first year, they just randomly generated a winner. Next up, we have Overwatch. The original Overwatch was a really fun game. I played this game when I was in college for several hours. But hear me out. This was the year when Uncharted 4, Dark Souls 3, and Doom 2016 was released. Do I really think that Overwatch was better than all of those games? No, definitely not. Yes, I might have played Overwatch more than any of them combined, but still Dark Souls 3 was one of my favorite Souls games and Doom was just a chaotic mess that I still love. I really don't think Overwatch should have won this year's Game of the Year award. And because of that, I'm keeping this game so down on the list. It's definitely one of the weakest winners of the award in my opinion. Next we have Astro Bot. In the same boat as Overwatch, we have Astro Bot, our latest winner of the award. Actually, now that I look at it, the panel for this show should be changed because last year we had Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, which I was shocked that it wasn't even nominated, and so many other games that were so much better. People were so enraged that they started calling the show Sony Game Awards. But it just might be the panel who only plays Nintendo games, and when they get something out of the ordinary or something innovative, they just can't fathom it. Don't get me wrong, Astro Bot is a wonderful game. I have said that in many of my videos, and it's always in the top half of my games lists for last year's games. But I think this is one of the weakest winners of the award, maybe just ahead of Overwatch. Next we have Walking Dead the game. When I was looking at all the different game awards nominees and winners, there were a lot of different games that won 2012's Game of the Year. Some gave it to The Journey, some gave it to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game, but the majority of the shows gave it to either Walking Dead the game or Dishonored. The Game Awards or the Spike Award at that time gave it to Walking Dead, which I believe to be the weaker of the two. I like Dishonored more than the Telltale games, and that's just my preference. Many people did like the game and I won't deny that the story is pretty good, but I want some action and some things to do in a game rather than watching a story unfold. And because of that, I'm ranking this game way lower. Although I have no issues with it being the Game of the Year for 2012. Other nominees that I thought could have won that year were Assassin's Creed 3 and Mass Effect 3, possibly the best Mass Effect game ever. It Takes Two is a great game for the year. It was developed by Hazelight Studios, a relatively unknown company, and they made a great game. The amount of effort the devs put into this game is reflected by the game's puzzle design, the story, the dialogues, and the overall graphics and feel of the game. It came out during COVID times, and because of that, not many studios were releasing their best games. Some of the other nominees for that year were Deathloop, which was really hype when it was released, Ratchet & Clank, and Resident Evil Village. Personally, I really think that It Takes Two does deserve this award because the other games, although were really good, this game took innovation to new levels. I had a lot of fun playing it, and it might not be the best game on the list, but it was the best game to be released during that year. Next we have Dragon Age Inquisition. This was the first Game of the Year from Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards show. This was one of the mid-years in terms of gaming. Dark Souls 2 missed the mark as many people, including me, felt like it was not it. Even the other contenders were not that good. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor was a great game, and I felt like if they went in and made the final battle with the Sauron, an epic boss battle that would be so much better. Instead, they went with the age-old quick-time events to make the ending one of the worst ones in gaming history. Even Hearthstone, although it made some huge waves, was not popular enough and not loved enough to be named Game of the Year. All in all, Dragon Age Inquisition was the best Dragon Age game in my opinion, but it still fell behind in terms of other games on the list. GTA 4 won the 2008 Game of the Year award, beating out Fallout 3 and Metal Gear Solid 4. It was an absolute banger of a game and a clear upgrade to San Andreas, which we will talk about very soon. The reason why I value San Andreas more than GTA 4 was because of how much impact that the game made compared to this one. By the time GTA 4 came out, Rockstar already was a big name, and so they did not have to innovate too much to the level they did with San Andreas. Not to take away anything from this game itself is one of the best open world games out there, no doubt about it. Maybe it's just me, or does Nico, the protagonist of the game, actually feel relatable? I don't mean I'm a notorious criminal like him, but his personality and insight of many of the situations makes him understandable. Also, this game has one of the best storylines. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is next, and boy was this game great. It had to compete against some of the giants in the gaming industry like Batman Arkham Asylum, which is another one of the games which is let down by its ending, Assassin's Creed 2 with Ezio as the main assassin, my personal favorite, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the original. Wow, now these were some great games. If only Batman Arkham Asylum had a better ending. Talking about Uncharted 2, the seamless transitions from gameplay to cutscene was considered innovative at that time. Even the combat and the story of this game was good. Some people believe that Uncharted 2 was the best Uncharted game ever, and I could believe that. Regardless though, the things that they did at that time was considered miles ahead of its time, and with some amazing gameplay, it was elevated to even greater heights, winning the award against some pretty tough opponents. We all knew San Andreas would be high, and we already discussed why this game is ahead of its successor, GTA 4. GTA San Andreas has the most memorable opening in gaming history.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Besides that, this game was miles ahead of its competition. Other nominees did include Half-Life 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3, which were some great games, no one can deny that. But San Andreas, with its open world and all the innovations they made in the genre, made it stand apart. Huge map, 3 different areas, tons of small towns, and roads that actually feel like roads, were to name a few. It was almost unanimously awarded the best game of the year by all the other game shows. While Half-Life 2 and MGS won some awards, San Andreas put the name of Rockstar in the head of every gamer. But there are tons of more games to come. Last of Us Part 2 won the Game of the Year for 2020, and to be honest, I thought Ghost of Tsushima should have won that year. The reason was because of the storyline. This game is almost entirely based on the cinematics, with occasional bits of gameplay here and there, and I don't mind that. But when the main thing you rely on becomes predictable and not good, that's when you have problems. People either really liked this game or hated it. I don't really mind Joel dying. In fact, that was the only unpredictable part of the game. Everything else, the revenge plot, the ending, all of it was so bland that it spoiled the mood for me a bit. The reason why it's so high up is because some people really love the story, and to be honest, the gameplay is not that bad. I also like that we get to play the part of the quote-unquote villain side of the story. Resident Evil 4 was the peak of Resident Evil series in my opinion, mainly because they steered too far away from the horror genre. It can be called an action thriller game, but that's a good thing. But also the reason why Resident Evil 5 and 6 suffered. The following titles kept the action sequences but failed to recreate the suspense, the thrill, and the overall atmosphere of the Resident Evil 4 game. I loved everything this game had to offer in terms of gameplay and story. I liked RE5 and 6, but it failed in comparison to RE4. While I would have loved if they kept the horror aspects of the series in the 4th installment, I loved the combat and action sequences. Also, they made some good improvements, mainly in the aiming and combat mechanics. The ability to jump through windows and throw away ladders, which does not sound too groundbreaking, but at that time it was fairly new. While there were many who thought that not going the same route as the previous RE title was a turn-off for them, I like the new direction they took. Bioshock is an excellent game, and in the era it was released in, it was such an innovative one as well. The winner of the 2007 Game of the Year award is a great classic that people still go back to even this day. Many compared this game to System Shock 2, which is valid because so many things are similar for both the games. While I would say that System Shock 2 was slightly better in gameplay department, Bioshock was better in the rest. The story and the element of weirdness is so seamlessly implemented in the game. It even changed the genre in a way that some of the things that were implemented in that game became the standard for every FPS game today. The final twist and the world of Bioshock is so well implemented as well that the player feels immersed. Next up, we have Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Considered to be one of the best RPG games to be ever made, this game has to be this high up regardless of what people think. The 2006 Game of the Year winner is still talked about even to this day. I mean, this was the game that had the infamous horse armor, the DLC that started all the microtransactions in today's gaming landscape. But the game itself is considered Bethesda's best open world RPG game, well, maybe behind Skyrim, which also Game of the Year award. The world of Oblivion is vast and unique and has so many things to do. Your decisions also matter as there are factions and missions for these factions vary with some of your decisions you make throughout your journey. This game was an absolute fan favorite until the DLC and is one of the games that made Bethesda one of the biggest names in the industry. Next we have The Witcher 3. It was a tough choice for me to choose between The Witcher 3 and the next game for this spot. Both are really good games, but the next one I would rate a little higher because of the ambition and what it was able to achieve. But The Witcher 3 is absolutely fantastic. It's really hard to believe that this game was released in 2015, almost a decade ago now. It had to compete against some pretty good games like MGS5, Bloodborne, and Fallout 4. Witcher 3 is an absolute fan favorite because it has a series made after it. Then there's the remake and everyone loves the book the game was based on. The morally grey choices that you need to make throughout your journey and the impact it has on the world is really great too. It's not like any typical RPG where you are the set good guy and you can do no wrong. In this game, you can essentially become the villain. I love all the attention to detail they put into this game, even for the side characters. God of War is next and it might be one of the most controversial ones on the list. Yes, I rate this game higher than The Witcher 3 because this game was able to pull off something not many game studios could say they did. They converted the genre of the original game from hack and slash to action-adventure game. Many people were fans of the original ones, but even they liked the new direction. The whole story-driven, cinematic-focused action game that the new God of War became was an instant hit. I loved every minute I spent on this game. I do think that the sequel was not up to the mark, and I may be in the minority here, but they did make the story a little bland. While the story of the first one, while at least the first one in this genre, really felt fresh. It was like the Spider-Man series. Spider-Man 2 was just simply Spider-Man 1 with 2 characters. I know this was the year where many people were not happy about the Game of the Year award winner. I get that. Red Dead Redemption was a much better game in my opinion too, but it's not like it was Madden NFL levels of bad. God of War is still one of the best PlayStation games in my opinion. The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time. It was released in 2011 and to this day it's still popular. Maybe because of its countless mods, or maybe because it's great world, or maybe it's because people just love the iconic opening scene. Whatever the case may be, people will still boot it up and play for hours on end. For a Bethesda game, that's saying something given how poorly their games are rated nowadays. The 5th installment in the series had a pretty high ceiling to follow after its critically acclaimed predecessor. Oblivion made such huge waves in the industry, and thankfully Skyrim blew away all the expectations. The choices you make have weight to it. The world building and the stories of side characters are actually interesting sometimes. The freedom you have in this game is incomparable. That said, this game does have some not so good qualities as well. The main story is not that enticing. The combat is alright at best and the dragon fights are what drove many people away. But we can't deny the impact this game had on the industry and the genre, and that's why it's in this spot. Sekiro Shadow Dies Twice was such a big step from Software. It was so different from the previous Souls-like games and at the same time so similar. The main protagonist actually has a backstory for once and the combat style is completely different from the other games. It has one of the most difficult mechanics to master, and if you don't time it right, it's so punishing. It does try to counter that by giving you 2 lives, thus the name of the game Shadow Dies Twice. That does not seem enough as you will die a lot in this game. After you manage to master the boss fight however, it just feels so satisfying. Parrying all their attacks and counter-attacking them all at once. Also, the kill mechanics and animations are great to watch as well after spending so much time to get to that point for that boss. I love that From Software tried out something new. While some people did not like it, I feel that this was a great game and deserves this spot on the list. Next we have Red Dead Redemption, the original. I know that the second installment was just as good, if not better, but the original game is what set off the amazing series. The great gameplay and story combined with hundreds of side stuff to do in the game really makes it one of a kind. The western setting that they recreated for this game was amazing as well. It even puts some of the movies of that time to shame. The characters and their stories were compelling as well, making them memorable. Aside from the main and side stuff, there are a lot of things to discover as well in the vast open world of this game. And talking about aesthetics, this game still stands strong with absolutely stunning graphics. With the freedom to do almost anything in the game, it sure made a lot of fans happy after finally making a new IP other than GTA. It's sad that PC players had to wait more than a decade to get this game. GTA 5 is next. How can we forget about GTA 5? It's still played by thousands of players every day. The online stuff and the RP servers are still blooming. GTA 5 became an instant success and there was no doubt that it would win Game of the Year. The developers, Rockstar, still make changes and put out patches for GTA Online and people really love playing it. Just roaming around the city and shooting everyone inside is fun enough. Mods have taken this game to another level. Being over 10 years old, this game can still hold its own in the graphics department, showing how far ahead of its time this game really was. Now that its successor GTA 6 is coming out either in 2025 or 26, this game might slowly fade into the darkness, but we can never forget how fun it really was. The 3 protagonist system was great, the story was good as well, and the stuff you can do in it was awesome. Legend of Zelda games are absolute masterclass, but this one took it to a whole new level. The game is so great, and the graphics looks amazing as well. I don't know how they managed to pull that off, being that the Switch has less power than the toaster. The gameplay was fantastic as well, but the best part of the game is the exploration and the experimenting that they allow for players. What's in those mountains? What can I make if I mix these ingredients? There are so many things to explore. By the end, you do become a monster in that you are almost unkillable. If you take your time and do not rush the story, you will be able to climb any heights, fight any monster, and just storm through the game. Also, there is very little to do post-game, which is also a little disappointing, but after wasting more than 100 hours in the game, I can say that you will be really happy playing this for the first time, and that's what's the most important thing. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of my personal favorites, not because I love Dungeons & Dragons. In fact, I haven't played Dungeons & Dragons ever. I loved it because it's so unique. There are hundreds of different outcomes and endings, so many different paths you can take, hundreds of different ways to get things done. The only limitation was your imagination. I have seen people blowing up whole camps and dungeons by only placing barrels and blowing them up. One more huge reason that the game became really popular was the speedrun to Sleep with Lysel. I mean, people were going crazy with the game, and it shows how much thinking that went into making it. To think of all those possibilities and all the different endings and all character stories. Baldur's Gate 3 also showed us that you don't need to flood your game with microtransactions, especially if it's a single player or a story-driven game. And finally, we have Elden Ring. When it came out, people were freaking out about how good this game was, but also many devs of different game studios got so jealous that they went to Twitter to say things like there is no HUD, the UI is not good. I mean, their game didn't sell, so they had to say something about other games to make them feel better. 2022, the year that Elden Ring won the Game of the Year, was a tough one, as it was either this game or God of War Ragnarok that was gonna win it all. People were split, with so many PlayStation fans thinking that God of War will take it all. For me personally, as I have said already, I liked the first game more than Ragnarok, so I was pretty confident about the winner. The Souls-like combat combined with the vast open world with so many secret areas and tunnels, this game was an absolute treat. Some of the bosses, especially the duo bosses, were very annoying sometimes, but the others were really great to fight. There are different endings, but the main story remains the same regardless. Even the DLC of this game was nominated for the Game of the Year last year. That's how good this game was, I guess. So these were the rankings of all the Game of the Year award winners. I know some of you might not agree with me, and And that's fine. These are just my opinions. Except for the Madden decision, rest of the winners are justifiable. You can make a reason for why they won, and that would be correct for some people. Let me know in the comments what do you think about this one. Also, if you enjoyed, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you want to know what the best RPG games are coming out in 2025, you can watch this video. See you in the next one.